We got a commander-in-chief now who's going to do everything within his power to keep us safe.
Send him to Gitmo. I would certainly consider that, yes.
He should serve the rest of his life in solitary. That's exactly the way I feel. Don't let him get communication with anybody.
He was ultimately stopped by a brave police officer.
Although I feel that we were just doing our job, like thousands of officers do every day, I understand the importance of yesterday's events.
You're going into battle trying to understand the enemy, and you're not being allowed to use the words that they use to describe themselves. This is the insanity of the last 8 years.
You don't tweet every thought. Most of your first initial thoughts are not worthy of the light of day.
Some people have decided that the Constitution isn't worth defending, that history isn't worth defending. If you're in my position, they have to be worth defending.
Good morning from New York City, a live shot there of the skyline here. Thank you so much for watching Fox and Friends First this morning, almost 4:02 in the morning here on the East Coast. Thank you so much. I'm Heather Childers. We do begin with that Fox News alert, though, a story that we're continuing to follow for you. He plotted for weeks, carried out dry runs, and wanted to kill many more people. Disturbing new details just revealed about the New York City terror suspect celebrating his bike path rampage, celebrating it from his hospital bed, and he even requested an ISIS flag to hang up in the room. Let's get right to Julie Banderas. She's live at the scene with some new information for us this morning. Good morning, Julie.
Hi, Heather. Yeah, in just a matter of 24 hours, here's what we know thus far. It took just that amount of time for investigators to gather enough evidence in order to charge this guy with federal murder and terrorism charges. And so today he does sit in prison. He appeared in court last night, handcuffed and in a wheelchair. The suspect, whose name I will not utter to spare him getting the wanted credit for his cowardly act of suspected terrorism, showed no remorse in court yesterday as he heard the charges against him. One count of providing material support to terrorists and one count of violence and destruction of a motor vehicle causing death. That latter charge carries the death penalty. We've also learned chilling new details of just how he plotted this attack for weeks after being radicalized online, even making dry runs 2 years after he was actually interviewed by the FBI about terror ties in 2015. And then we've got that new amateur video that we want to show you. It was actually shot from an apartment above the scene where the suspect was captured. And in it, you can actually see the 29-year-old suspect aimlessly running around after he crashed his rental Home Depot truck before SWAT teams arrived. And in fact, it was the act of one uniformed, ununiformed NYPD police officer who shot him in the leg and subdued him. That officer, Ryan Nash, gave a short statement to the press last night. Here's what the hero cop had to say.
Although I feel that we were just doing our job, like thousands of officers do every day, I understand the importance of yesterday's events and the role we played, and I'm grateful for the recognition we have received.
Police sources tell me Officer Nash won't be allowed to comment until after a trial. Nash did fire 9 shots, striking the suspect once in the left thigh, who was later transported to a local hospital Tuesday, then into hands of prison doctors yesterday. That deadly weapon, the truck, the Home Depot truck, removed from the scene yesterday. It will be used as evidence. Both federal authorities, the FBI, NYPD counterterrorism units continue this investigation, but say that this is the lone wolf suspect and only suspect. Another person questioned is a person of interest, but so far only one suspect related to this incident. Back to you, Heather.
All right, Julie Banderas live for us this morning. Thank you so much. Great to have you here with us. But in the meantime, Gitmo or death. President Trump calling for the killer to face swift justice while taking aim at Democrats for defending the Visa lottery program that allowed him into America in the first place. Griff Jenkins picks up our coverage live from Washington. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. The president is calling for the death penalty in the federal terrorism case against the accused killer. He's tweeting, New York terrorist was happy as he asked to hang ISIS flag in his hospital room. He killed 8 people, badly injured 12, should get the death penalty, all caps there. The White House also says they consider Saipov to be an enemy combatant, and the president indicated that he is open to sending the truck attacker to Guantanamo.
Mr. President, do you want the assailant from New York sent to Gitmo? Mr. President?
I would certainly consider that, yes.
Are you considering that now, sir?
I would certainly consider that.
Are you?
Send him to Gitmo. I would certainly consider that, yes.
President Trump also vowed to shut down the diversity visa lottery program that brought the alleged killer to our shores in 2010 from Uzbekistan.
We want to immediately work with Congress on the diversity lottery program, on terminating it, getting rid of it. We want a merit-based program where people come into our country based on merit.
The program's been in place for only over 20 years, first introduced in 1990 by Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, who says he tried to shut it down in 2013. A war of words between Schumer and the president playing out, as Schumer calls him, or accuses the president of playing politics here. So we'll see probably some more of that. But currently, the U.S. Attorney, Heather in New York, is planning on trying the suspect in a civilian court, but left the door open to change that down the road.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about that and what will happen. Griff Jenkins, live for us. Thank you, Griff. Well, among the 8 people killed, 32-year-old Darren Drake, the 32-year-old worked as a project manager in Lower Manhattan, was taking a bike ride between a meeting when he was run down. His heartbroken father now doubling down on President Trump's call for more extreme vetting.
These people, they come to the country and they hurt us. I mean, what do they expect? I mean, of course, there's a war going on between America and, you know, ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Of course, there's a war going on. But, you know, I just think that vetting should be a lot more difficult, you know, to allow these people to come into the country, especially a single man. But you get these, you know, these radicals, and, you know, my son is the victim. He should serve the rest of his life in solitary. That's exactly the way I feel. Don't let him get communication with anybody.
Well, James Drake described Darren as the perfect son. Their last conversation was about traffic and whether Darren would have time to ride a bike the same day that he was killed. And our prayers with all of those families impacted. Well, President Trump now being praised by America First Action spokesman and senior advisor David Clark. He says that we now have a president who will take action against terror.
There's some good news here. President Donald Trump is the only elected official in the Beltway in Washington, D.C. who gets it. I heard his press conference this afternoon. It was brilliant. It was spot on. Not only has he identified the enemy and identified what the problem is, and he did it during his entire campaign. I think it's one of the big reasons he got elected, but he's also going to do something about it. I was glad to hear that he's going to suspend this crazy diversity lottery program until Congress can get their act. And that's Congress has been a problem too. Both parties, they refuse to tackle immigration to make this country safe. But, you know, like I said, we got a commander-in-chief now who's going to do everything within his power to keep us safe.
Well, President Trump has called for extreme vetting and tougher border security ever since the campaign. In fact, even before that. Well, a manhunt intensifying right now for a man who walked into a crowded Walmart and just started shooting. Thornton police say that this man opened fire near the entrance of a store just north of Denver. 2 men shot and killed at the scene. A woman later dying from her injuries at a hospital. Police say that the man took off in his car, has not been seen since, and they say the attack appears to be random. Well, today, President Trump's former campaign aides accused of conspiring against the United States are set to appear in court. Paul Manafort and Richard Gates already pleading not guilty to charges stemming from conspiracy, money laundering, and failing to register as a foreign agent. The indictments do not mention President Trump at all or the alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 election. But today is the day that we will finally see President Trump's historic tax plan. Its release was initially delayed over negotiations, but our commander-in-chief says that now is the time to make history.
It's cuts and it's relief and it's also reform. And frankly, it's also simplification. So we're covering everything. There has never been anything like it.
Well, this as a group of New York House Republicans have submitted an alternative tax plan to House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady, I should say. New York is one of several states that will benefit least from the tax plan. So that was a good night for him. Well, entitled and self-righteous, former First Lady Michelle Obama taking aim at men and taking some swipes at President Trump, sort of. Jackie Vanias joins us now with a story that sent Twitter into a frenzy. Good morning, Jackie. What is this about?
Hi. Good morning, Heather. Good morning to everyone at home. Well, Michelle Obama offering lots of advice during the first ever Obama Foundation Summit in Chicago. Most of it, well, the young men of the world and President Trump, though, she didn't mention him by name. The former First Lady slamming men as entitled and self-righteous, but says it's not their fault. Women, Heather, are to blame.
Of course.
It's powerful to have strong men, but what does that strength mean? You know, does it mean respect? Does it mean responsibility? Does it mean compassion? Or are we protecting our men too much so they feel a little entitled and a little, a little self-righteous sometimes? But that's kind of on us too, as women and mothers. As we nurture men and push girls to be perfect.
The former First Lady also telling men to get, quote, some friends and talk to each other about their alleged gender-based problems. She didn't stop there, though. She also took a subtle swipe at the current occupier of her old home at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Listen.
You don't tweet every thought. Tweeting and social media, that is a powerful weapon.
It is.
That we just hand over to little kids. A 10-year-old, here you go. Tell it like it is. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to think and spell it right and have good grammar.
Well, she was quick to point out, though, that she wasn't talking about anyone in particular. Remember, a few weeks ago, the former First Lady made headlines for slamming the GOP as all men and all white. So she allegedly wasn't talking about the president, Heather.
No, of course not.
No.
Although it may have seemed that way.
Just 10-year-old kids.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. We, of course, want to keep talking about this, though. What do you think? Are men too entitled, and are women to blame? Join the conversation with Jackie on Facebook Live, Twitter, and Instagram, and we'll share some of your comments later in the show. Well, the time now is about 13 minutes after the top of the hour, and from lone wolf to known wolf, the accused New York City terrorist was on the radar. So how did he slip through the cracks?
It's about the Obama administration. You're going into battle trying to understand the enemy, and you're not being allowed to use the words that they use to describe themselves. This is the insanity of the last 8 years.
Our next guest is a former CIA analyst who says that the PC police are keeping the real police from doing their jobs. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. A Fox News alert for you. Some new reports showing that the New York City terror suspect has been on the radar since at least 2015. So how was he able to carry out the deadliest terror attack that the city has seen since 9/11? Now, former CIA analyst Fred Fleets is here to weigh in on the red flags that could have been missed. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good to be here. Good morning.
We mentioned the possibility of this yesterday, unconfirmed, that he was on the radar here, and now we know that to be true. Let's take a look specifically at, some of the background first of Sayfullo Saipov. He's not a U.S. citizen. He was born in Uzbekistan, as we said yesterday. He came to the U.S. through this diversity visa program. He passed an Uber driver background check, and he drove with them for 6 months. What did we miss here, Fred?
Well, let's start off with noting that we're hearing the same thing we hear every time there's a terrorist attack in the U.S. The guy's a lone wolf, there's no foreign ties, and we have New York officials saying he was recently radicalized. New York officials can't know that. He was interviewed as part of a counterterrorism investigation 2 years ago. His mosque was under surveillance by the New York City Police Department. I think those are red flags, and it raises for me the question, was this an intelligence failure? But there's a bigger question here. Did political correctness prevent U.S. officials from connecting these dots? And is this the reason this guy slipped through the cracks?
And that's a valid question, especially when we take a look at some of the facts that you just mentioned, specifically the mosque themselves that were then taken off this investigation. Let's take a look at that. In 2006, as we just mentioned, Fred said Saipov's mosque believed to be the subject of this federal investigation. And then in 2010, Sayfullo Saipov enters the U.S. And then in 2014, New York City drops the unit that surveils mosque. And then in 2015, he was identified as a point of contact for the 2 men in a terror database. And then at that time, he was interviewed as well. And then in 2017, Saipov carried out, of course, the deadliest New York City attack since 9/11. So do you think part of the issue were the surveillance of these mosques that was lifted?
I think there's a real possibility of that. This mosque was being surveilled by the New York City police, even though it was in Paterson, New Jersey. There was a special arrangement with a prior New Jersey governor to permit that. But Bill de Blasio shut down this surveillance program because he thought that it wasn't sensitive to Muslims in the region. And look, I understand that concern, but if a mosque or a church is believed to be a headquarters or a place where terrorists are meeting, I think the U.S. government has to be surveilling it. De Blasio shut this program down. We know this is the mosque that this guy was worshiping at, and there was some terrorist link. This is something I think we need to look into.
Oh, and I'm absolutely sure that people will as a result of this. Fred Fleets joining us live this morning with some insight. Fred, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour, and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas sounding off on national anthem protest in this rare interview that we only see on Fox News.
Some people have decided that the Constitution isn't worth defending, that history isn't worth defending.
Why he says he's not giving up the fight. And straight white males need not apply at the DNC. Well, now Twitter wants to know why the so-called Party of Diversity isn't an equal opportunity employer. And Carly Shimkus has your responses on that coming up. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. Ever wonder why you didn't see tweets about the DNC email leaks? Think about that. And that was in the months leading up to the 2016 election. Well, it turns out that Twitter purposely hid them. Carly Shimkus from Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with reaction to the social media censorship. Good morning.
Good morning. This is a big one. Amid Twitter's ongoing investigation, or amid the ongoing investigation into Russia's efforts to influence our election, Twitter, Facebook, and Google executives have been testifying on Capitol Hill. And amid that testimony, we now know that Twitter worked to stop the spread of certain hashtags that would negatively impact Hillary Clinton. Here is a direct quote from a Twitter executive who says, "Our systems detected and hid just under half, 48% of tweets relating to variants of another notable hashtag, hashtag DNC leak, which concerns the disclosure of leaked emails from the Democratic National Committee. On top of that, approximately 25% of tweets, including the hashtag Podesta emails, were also hidden from searches as well." And why these topics directly relate to Russia's hacking of the DNC, some people are accusing Twitter of censoring its users, like Hamish, who says Twitter colluded with the Clintons too. Charlie tweeted, "Freedom of speech being silenced. If it doesn't fit the status quo, it's been obvious." And another Twitter user says Twitter, Google, and Facebook censoring info damaging to their preferred party. This is election interference and exactly what they accused President Trump of doing. And while all that is going on, Twitter is also being accused of not doing enough to stop the spread of Russia's interference. So tough day to be at.